Hello and welcome to another pen video from me, Penultimate Dave. So I have here another 10 pens currently inked this week. I think let's go through these briefly one by one. We'll go through them in a little bit more detail and then we'll do a writing sample. So from left to right we have the Visconti Divina Elegance in green, a Visconti Homo Sapiens London Fog, a Visconti Luxor Obelisk. We have a lovely Visconti, and this is the Leonardo daVinci Machina. We have a Leonardo Brunelleschi. We have a Visconti Istos Aracnis. We have a Visconti Belgica, a Visconti Homo Sapiens Demostones in Sapphire, a Visconti Opera Master Savanna, and a Visconti Opera Master, and this is in the golden dust. So I think let's take a look at these pens in a little bit more detail. So this is a very beautiful, stunning Visconti Divina Elegance in green, and this is the oversized model, and I think they didn't actually do, from this point onwards, I don't think they did a MIDI version. I think the MIDI versions just didn't sell as much. So this is the oversized version. It's a beautiful green resin, which has, you can see there, a lot of chatoyance. Also paired with these rose gold strips as well. Really, really nice pen. It is a long pen. It's not a short pen. And you do have this captured converter that you pull out and then twist. Essentially, a captured converter is a converter that is non-removable from a fountain pen. You could potentially call it a piston. I know some international sites have called cartridge converters pistons because technically they do have a piston, but it's not the traditional piston that you would know of in a lot of piston filling mechanism pens. So this is a cartridge converter, but what you say, converter, it's captured converter. You can't use cartridges with this. The cap, when you uncap it, it's a hook safe lock mechanism. So you've got that hook safe lock mechanism there, quarter of a turn. And this has a 23 cap palladium medium nib there from Visconti. This was before they went back to using the 18 karat gold nibs. You can post the cap, and these strips do line up as well, so that is a nice touch. But I find that I don't need to post the cap on this. The pen itself is actually quite long. Even if I were to grip it up here above the section, it's still long enough for me to write, even though I'm more of a section hugger myself. So I do actually use the lower part, in most cases, of a section. I try typically to put my fingers around and the thumb around the medium part of the section, but if it's not a concave section, they will typically slide down to the base of the section. The next pen here is the beautiful Visconti Homo Sapiens London Fog. I had this inked up last week as well. I have my initials here on the cap finial, and I think, as I've mentioned before, I started to get a load of those cap finials, and then I realized very quickly it was not sustainable for two reasons. One, I think there were only 5 sets of each initial in each retailer set that was given to, or basically sold to the retailer so that they could sell the initials on. But also because at that point I had about 20, 30 Viscontis, and now I have over 70, nearly approaching 80 now. So, but this is a beautiful, beautiful demonstrator. Holds 2.5 milliliters of ink. This is actually celluloid ribbon within that demonstrator. Beautiful, beautiful pen. So glad I was able to pick this up early on in my collecting with fountain pens. It's got a 23 karat palladium fine nib on it, and it's not inked up at the moment because, again, I want to show you, I think I showed you last week as well. I've cleaned it out since, but I wanted to show you that pattern because when you actually see the ink, when you have ink in the body of a pen, and most of the time it looks black, so it's not going to highlight that blue and white as much. But when it's empty, you can see the beauty of this pen. I think that's probably the only issue I would say with some of these ribbon demonstrators, is that ultimately you don't see the beauty once it's inked up, and I wish that it would be really difficult, but I kind of wish around the edges of the ribbons there was a lot of like bright white outlines, so that you could actually highlight that ribbon more. But I know that would be almost impossible to do. But that nib is a beautiful writing nib. And yeah, you can post the caps here like I showed you. It does make the pen long. It doesn't make it back weighted on most of the Homo sapiens, so it's actually a decent weight. So for me, I can post those caps if I want to. Typically I don't want to, but I can if I want to. So it gives me the best of both worlds. Maybe at some point I will start to post more caps. I just typically don't post my caps as much as some of you do. So for me, it's just one of those things. The next pen here is this beautiful pen. It is a Visconti Luxor Obelisk, and this is a beautiful work of art. It is a ebonite body with urushi and makie on it, with all these Egyptian hieroglyphs. Yeah, but this is a beautiful, beautiful pen. It is a power vac. It is a double reservoir. You see the ink there as well, and then again, it's a 23 cap palladium medium nib. Now, I wouldn't want to post these caps because it is ebonite, and honestly, it's not really designed to do so. It won't go onto that cap. So I actually do like it when there are like makie urushi pens and they really almost, I want to say almost, design them to not be posted, because I think it would be horrible to post those. And I'm just going to actually line that up a little bit more. It would be horrible to post those and start marring the finish. Yes, urushi is a tough lacquer, but with anything in life, you are going to find that you are going to get micro scratches here and there, and I would hate to have a micro scratch that maybe sort of took the color off, or made it white across some of the color here. So for me, it's just not something I would want to do on a regular basis. I will show you here on my videos, but I typically cringe if I hand a pen to somebody at a pen club and then the first thing they try to do is post the cap without asking, especially if it's a pen like this. It's just one of those things. I don't normally post those caps. The next pen here, beautiful pen. Absolutely fell in love with this pen. The clip is definitely different to what Visconti normally make. Same with the Luxor Obelisk as well. But this is a Leonardo da Vinci Machina, and this is a scrimshaw pen. And so this is an ivory coloured resin, and then they laser etch. And you can see some of the wording here. It is so fine. And then they colour it in with this like terracotta red like colour to make it stand out more. Beautiful. You even actually have Leonardo da Vinci's signature there as well. Beautiful pen, Powervac filler, and this does come with the 18 karat gold nib, the newer one from Visconti. It's a Powervac. It's a hook safe lock. It's not a double reservoir. There is no ink window, but that is a pen that I like. And can you post that cap? Yeah, you can. It posts very deeply and securely. A little bit back weighted because there's a lot of metal here on on that clip and cap, but it is a really nice pen, and although it's an 18 karat medium nib, it writes more like a fine to me, a Western fine, and I want to say initially I was maybe a little bit disappointed, maybe 20% disappointed, but when I actually started writing with that nib, I really liked it. And I've got some 18 karat fine nibs from Visconti. I've got some 23 karat fine nibs from Visconti, like in the London Fog. And as much as I am more typically a medium, Western medium nib guy, I do actually like a fine nib, Western fine, if it really writes well. And when I say writes well, I'm talking about sort of it being smooth-ish. It can have some pencil feedback to it, but it has to be a wet writer, because I'm not a fan of heavy feedback. Pencil-like feedback I can cope with to varying degrees, but so it has to be a wet writer, and this is a wet writer, so I'm happy about that. Another Visconti I picked up a long time ago, I think it was in, I want to say 2017, maybe 2018, probably 2017, was the Brunelleschi, and from Visconti. So this is a pen made of terracotta. There were two versions made. One was the first one, which was for the fountain pen network, and it was a limited edition one. And then because it was so popular, Visconti did a non-limited edition run of the same pen. So this is the non-limited edition run. So, and that doesn't bother me. It still came in the same box with the same bottle, glass bottle of ink. I do like this pen a lot. I think it was a glass bottle. Pretty sure it was. But this again, it's a power vac filler, hook safe lock mechanism, and then a 23 karat palladium medium nib, which I really do adore. You can also post the cap there if you wish. The earlier models, some of these terracottas, the caps would crack. People would maybe have the pen roll off the table or drop the pen, and the caps would crack. I know there was a lot of talk back in the day on Fountain Pen Network about that. I've not had any issues with this. I know that Visconti did go back and reformulate that terracotta to make it less brittle, and I was assured by Chris at Truffet that this was the reconstituted version of that terracotta, so I shouldn't have any issues, and I haven't had any issues. So if you pick up one of the numbered edition ones, those I'm pretty sure were more brittle. So that's just something to bear in mind. If you find one, you want one. If it is a numbered edition, just be a little bit careful with it. Don't drop it off a desk or something. The next pen I have inked up this week is this one, and it's a Visconti Istos Aracnis. And I'm not a fan of spiders. I really have not been a fan of spiders, but there was something about this overlay. I started getting into overlays and started buying more overlays from Visconti, and this one come up for offer, and there were a couple actually, and I missed out on the first one, but I got the second one, but I got it. Strange enough, the first one, I think it came with the original box, whereas the second one, it just came with a clamshell box. It was a less ornate box, but that didn't bother me. I think I got a bit more of a discount as well because of that. But I like this pen, and even though I don't like spiders, so you have an ink window. Again, it's a power vac double reservoir, and it has the older 23 karat palladium nib there. It's a medium nib, and you can post the cap, but it is quite back weighted because of the overlay. This is a silver overlay, so it's not a huge amount of silver, but it's enough to make it back weighted if you are going to post that cap. The next pen here is the Visconti, and this is the Belgica, and luck would have it, I had seen this being available on a number of sites, and it was selling for, I want to say 2,000 dollars or pounds at the time. And then I saw some guy post it on eBay in the UK, and he wanted a ridiculous amount of money for it. When I say ridiculous, I don't mean expensive. Uh, I want to say, and I'm going to have to look this up in my spreadsheet here actually, because I I have a number of figures that I have in mind here, and I'm not too sure. The lower figure I'm thinking of that I may have paid um, was too low. And actually, I'm just looking at it, and wow, okay, so I was right. So this pen would sell retail for about $2,000, and I saw some I think for about 15 or 1700. This guy on eBay in the UK listed it allegedly after I won the auction, because I was the only one that bid on it, for 250. It was a steal. I was the only one that bid on it. There was no description other than fit for kings. And, um, and I don't think he really knew what he had. Well, he kind of knew a little bit, but I don't think he really knew. And then he apologized and said, "Well, I didn't really mean to list it for 250." And I was like, "Well, okay, but like, I won the auction, so I got this pen for a steal." And this is a Paravac, a double reservoir. It's got the older 18 karat gold nib, and this is a broad nib on this pen, and this is a really, really nice pen, and I have to say that that is beautiful. So for me, that is a great buy. You don't get those buys that often, and actually, can I post the cap on here? You can do. The cap isn't that heavy, but it just makes a lot of these pens that I have. It just makes them way too long. But that was a steal, and I couldn't believe my eyes when I saw the price. I thought it must be some kind of fake, or that I was going to get scammed. But a couple of days later, the pen arrived in its full, massive, heavy box, and I was just in awe that I got that pen so cheaply. And it was the full box pen, so I'm pretty sure it wasn't stolen. The guy also had another collection of pens, but none of the pens really interested me. They were like Cartiers, and I just wasn't into that kind of pen then. So there were some that were overlays in that, but most of them were thin gold or silver pens, and they just it wasn't what I was after. So so for me, I decided I could have bought some more from him, and maybe given him a bit more money back. But there just wasn't anything that I really liked. The next pen inked up is the Visconti Homo Sapiens. This is a demo stone, hence the blue gemstone or demo stone. It's not actually a gemstone on these, hence the name Demostones. It's just a bit of plastic, but it's an interesting touch. Normally you'd have the Visconti My Pen finial here. You have it on this one, but you have it on the other end. And I'm not really a fan of having the finial on this end, to be honest. But I had the red one of this. I had the Caput Mundi. I had the Jade, and I decided that I would get the blue one. Managed to pick this up. I think it was last year. Yeah, 22. It wasn't 23. I picked this up from Roy at Izod's. Beautiful demonstrator. It's a Paravac. It's a double reservoir, hook safe lock. Holds 2.5 milliliters of ink, but it does have the 14 karat gold nib there. The newer 14 karat gold nib from Visconti. You can post the cap as well if you want to. So that equally is a nice touch if you like posting your caps. But for me, that's a really nice pen. I like that 14 karat nib in the way it writes. Still not a fan of that new logo on it though, the almost a cross. But I prefer the original Visconti Fleur de Lis logo or imprint on the nib. And then there's this pen inked up, which is the Visconti Opera Master, and this is a Savanna, and again, another pen that I got for quite a steal. This was being sold by Regina Martini of Martini Auctions in Germany, and I think that there were a couple of bidders before me, but I was the winning bid on this one, and I got it for a good price. 888 of these. This was number 277. Reminds me of Savanna or the sort of African continent in general. It's a nice pen. It is a Visconti Opera Master, so it's a power vac. It is a double reservoir, though you can't really see it here. And it does have the hook safe lock mechanism. And then it has the 18-cat gold Nuna nibs from Visconti. This is a broad. Can you post a cap? Yes. And it is designed to do so. Not that back weighted, but there is a bit of silver there on the cap here. So there's a little bit of added weight to the cap when you, or to the end of the body when you post that cap. And then the last pen here is the Visconti Opera Master Golden Dust. Again, this was one I purchased on eBay. And I guess I have bought quite a lot of pens on eBay. This one was in the US, and this was number 3 of 60. Beautiful, smoky resin. Really do like this a lot. I've told the story that I was after the original, more clear, smoky tobacco version, which had sold out, and I saw this one, bought it, and then the next week another tobacco turned up, was available on eBay. At the point I decided not to buy that one. It did have some ink staining in the ink window. I bought this one, and I really have been glad since. It's a power vac double reservoir, and it's got the 23-cat palladium nib there. It's a fine nib. It's the older threaded version of the Opera Masters. You can post the cap as well. Again, the Opera Masters are a little bit more back weighted because you've got this metal here, and then you've obviously got the cap band there as well. But I find that I don't need to post those caps, so it doesn't bother me. But it might bother some people if you're not used to heavy back weighted pens, if you have to post the caps. So that's my 10 pens currently inked this week. I think let's now go and do a writing sample. So the first pen here is the Visconti Divina Elegance. So we'll do an ink swatch here. And I do like this pen. I thought at one point that this nib was a little bit too firm, but I don't think it is, honestly. I'm going to zoom in a little bit more there. So this is the Visconti Divina Elegance in green. And I think it was probably because I had more bouncy 23-cat palladium nibs, and that's probably why. This is a medium, and it's a 23-cat palladium nib, and then the ink in here is Diamine Meadow, which is a lovely green. I think it actually complements the green of the pen quite a lot. I have in the past inked that up with Diamine Apple Glory as well. I think it's been a little bit more too bright an ink. I think I may have even put Ackerman Dutch Masters Van Hoysum Sap Grown in there as well at one point. So that is a nice green colour, I think, for a green pen. The next pen here is the Visconti Homo Sapiens London Fog. So we'll do an ink swatch. And I have been using this over the last week with Visconti Blue. I typically have gone with something like Washizuku Konpeki in the past. So this is a Visconti Homo Sapiens London Fog. and it's a fine, and it's a 23 cat palladium nib. And then the ink in here, as I mentioned, is Visconti Blue. But that is a nice blue ink for that pen. Although typically in the past I've tried to avoid staining the pen, so I've always used Iroshizuku Konpeki, because that's a pretty, at least from my experience, a pretty safe ink to use. The next pen inked up is this one, and this is the Visconti Luxor Obelisk. So we'll do an ink swatch here. And this, I find, is a lovely wet medium nib. So not a fine like the London Fog. So this is the Visconti Luxor Obelisk. So it's a medium, and just double checking, it is a 23 cat palladium nib. And then the ink in here also is Visconti Blue. I have previously used other more cerulean blue coloured inks. Just trying to think. I think Pelican Needle Sign Topaz has been one of them in the past. Possibly maybe Visconti Turquoise, although I'm not 100% sure that I had Visconti Turquoise when I was inking that pen up. I think it may have been, maybe even Raw and Klinger Blue Mare would have been another one that I probably would have used, I think, on that pen. The next pen is a Visconti Leonardo daVinci Machina. So we'll do an ink swatch here. Now, this is a fine nib, but I do find it's a nice lubricated wet writer. It's not a fire hose nib, but it writes fairly wet, and it may be partly due to the ink that I put in here. So this is the Visconti Leonardo daVinci. I was just wondering whether or not I was going to actually write all of this out, because it may not actually fit. I think it will. Machina. And this is a medium, and it's an 18 cat newer gold nib, in-house nib from Visconti. But to me, it writes a little bit more towards a fine nib. But the ink in here is diamine, and it is ochre. And sometimes I will write with Akamon SBRE Brown in that pen as well. And equally, it's a nice colour. So either of those two colours are really good for that pen. The next pen inked up is the Visconti Brunelleschi. Now, if you've been watching my currently inked videos, and maybe the review video of this, I would have inked this up with a more darker colour, and I would have gone with probably Raw and Klinger, and I'm just trying to think I want to say it's Blue Mare. It's not Blue Mare. It's Old Bordeaux. That's the colour. A very nice dark colour. But this is the Visconti Brunelleschi. And I'm going to have to look this up, because I've not written with this pen a long time, so I'm not entirely too sure how to spell this. It's 1N, 2L, so Brunelleschi. After the Brunelleschi Dome in Florence, actually, just looking that up. So Visconti Brunelleschi, this is a medium, and it is, I just want to double check this actually, I think it's a 23 cat, yeah, 23 cat palladium nib. I thought it actually said 18 cat then. And then the ink in here is diamine terracotta, which honestly I do think actually matches the pen colour quite well. So that's I really probably originally should have inked that pen up with diamine terracotta, but I think I'd inked it up prior in another pen and found that diamine terracotta can be a little bit more on the dry side. So I wanted a nice wet lubricated ink, and Raw and Klinger Alt Bordeaux was really nice and very, very lubricated. So at that point, I decided that I would ink that up. The next pen here is the Visconti, and this is the Istos Aracnis. And I am going to break with tradition. I've normally used a high blue sheening ink. We're going to do an ink swatch here. So we'll see. But this is certainly not a blue ink. But this nib is quite wet. So I do like that a lot. So this is the Visconti. And it is the Istos Aracnis. And it is a medium. And I want to say this is a 23 cat palladium nib. And then the ink in here is Visconti Bordeaux. But for me, that's a nice writing nib. I think some I had seen online came with 18 karat gold nibs. I think a lot of time, a lot of people didn't like the 23 karat palladium nibs. So if retailers had another Visconti with an 18 karat gold nib out on that another pen, they would swap them around sometimes. So and I think also it was when Visconti were transitioning from the older Bock 18 karat gold to the 23 karat palladium nibs. So if there was an abundance of 18 karat gold nibs around, it was easy to swap them around. I think people don't like change. So if you've bought a bunch of Viscontis that had 18 karat gold nibs, you probably don't want a different 23 karat palladium nib, because 18 karat gold is probably what you're more used to at that point. So from that perspective, I completely understand that. It's just how really us as people, as humans, think, I think, a lot of the time. The next pen inked up is the Visconti, and this is the Belgica. And strangely enough, the only part of the description that was on this pen on the eBay seller was a pen fit for kings and queens. So yeah, that was a bit weird. It was also a very broad nib as well. So I didn't. And I want to say it is. I'm just looking at it now. The nib off camera. It is a broad nib, but to me, it almost writes like a double broad. So this is the Visconti Belgica. But it is a broad. But you can see that to me is a double broad. And it is the older 18 karat gold nib from Visconti and Bock. And then the ink in here is KWZ Hawaii Blue, which is a lovely blue. I have to say, I am liking that blue a lot. So a little bit more of a turquoisey coloured blue. And I think, let me just show you the cap here. You can kind of see the varying levels of blue that you will get out of that ink. The next pen inked up is the Visconti Homo Sapiens Demostones Sapphire. And we'll do an ink swatch here. I'm just going to open, because I've not written with this for a little while. So I'm just going to open up the power vac here just to... it is getting a little bit low on ink as well. So I just need to probably flood that through a little bit. I'm just going to dip it in a little bit of... if anybody has any issues getting a pen started, like a little bit of water, just a dip in the water is normally enough to get that capillary action started. It will be a little bit lighter to start with, but it will then go back to its normal colour. So this is the Visconti Homo Sapiens Demostones and then it's Sapphire, and it's a medium, and it's a 14 karat gold nib. And then the ink in here is Visconti turquoise, which is a lovely Visconti, lovely turquoisey coloured ink. And I also always think of KWZ Hawaii Blue to be this colour, but obviously Hawaii Blue is a little bit more darker than certainly I would expect. I'm not sure about you, but for me it definitely seems darker than it maybe should be. The next pen inked up is the Visconti Opera Master Savanna. So we will do an ink swatch to start with. And I have to say, this has become the favourite ink for this pen. And a lot of people ask me, how do you choose which pen to ink up with each colour? And I have to say that a lot of the time it's just intuition. I decide that it's a yellow pen, I want a yellow ink, and I'll look at a couple of my inks, or yellowish, mangoish ink, and then I'll pick one. And I'd say 90% of the time, I like the ink pen combination, and I will stick with it. So this is the Visconti Opera Master Savanna, and it's a broad, and it's the newer 18 karat in gold, 18 karat gold in-house nib from Visconti. And then the ink in here is Lamy Mango. And this is just, I saw this ink, and I think I saw it when it came out, and I thought that this is an ink that I would like, and then I didn't get it, and it was interesting, and I think it was good 6 months went by, maybe a little bit longer, and then I decided, I saw it again when I was looking for some ink, and it was like, I really need to get that ink. And I bought 2 bottles of it, and I'm so glad I have, because I really like that ink. So for me, definitely a worthwhile ink. You've got to really use that, though, in a broad or a stub nib, I think. I think if you used it in a fine, you might get away with a medium, maybe a fine, but if you use an extra fine or a fine nib, I think you would possibly struggle to read the writing. The last pen inked up is the Visconti Opera Master Golden Dust. So we will also do an ink swatch here. And this nib, it's a fine nib, but it writes quite wet, and also has some bounce to it as well, which I do like. So this is the Visconti Opera Master Golden Dust with a fine, and I just want to double check, it is a 23 karat palladium nib. Yeah, because it's got a bit of bounce to it. And then the ink in here is Diamine Ochre, which is a beautiful coloured ink, which I also have on this one up here as well. But you're going to see it probably will look different, a different shade of brown between those 2 nibs. But whether or not it's dark, whether or not it's light, it doesn't bother me. So I think let's take a look at these pens inked up one more time. We have a Visconti Divina Elegance in green in a medium 23 karat palladium nib inked up with Diamine Meadow. We have a Visconti Homo Sapiens London Fog in a fine 23 karat palladium nib inked up with Visconti Blue. We have a Visconti Luxor Obelisk in a medium 23 karat palladium nib inked up with Visconti Blue. We have a Visconti Leonardo daVinci Machina in a medium 18 karat gold nib inked up with Diamine Ochre. We have a Visconti Brunelleschi in a medium 23 karat palladium nib inked up with Diamine Terracotta. And I think you can see that it's a little bit more of a drier writer in the ink swatch there. We then have a Visconti Istos Aracnis in a medium 23 karat palladium nib inked up with Visconti Bordeaux. We have a Visconti Belgica in a broad 18 karat gold nib inked up with KWZ Hawaii Blue. We have a Visconti Homo Sapiens Demostones Sapphire in a medium 14 karat gold nib inked up with Visconti Turquoise. We have a Visconti Opera Master Savanna in a broad 18 karat gold nib inked up with Lamy Mango. And then we have a Visconti Opera Master Golden Dust in a fine 23 karat palladium nib inked up with Diamine Ochre. So there you have it. That's my current ink pens for this week. Thanks for watching. Please like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you on the next pen video. Bye-bye.